Imagine surrounding yourself with incredible women who've overcome challenges, they've rebounded after failures and disappointments, and women who are not afraid to shine their brilliance to make a mark in the world. These women support other like-minded women because they know there is plenty of opportunity for everyone, and that together we really can make a difference, grow our businesses while have fun along the way. This is what Women in Leadership Podcast is all about. Welcome. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross. Grab a cuppa of your favourite beverage, pull up a chair, and let's get this conversation started. And welcome to another episode. So my guest today says a woman in her power raises everyone around her. And joining me on today's show is Dr. Sharon Melnick. She is a prominent global figure in women's success, resilience, and empowerment. She has a decade of research experience at Harvard Medical School, and her methods have been honed and tested by over 40,000 participants in coaching and training programs worldwide. Now, she is noteworthy for her impactful speaking engagements. She's captivated audience at prestigious venues like the White House, West Point, and United Nations. She is an accomplished author. Her books include In Your Power, React Less, Regain Control, Raise Others, as well as Success Under Stress. She's a sought-after executive coach for women executives. She's also the creator of the Next Level Leader program, boasting a 92% success rate in propelling women to higher opportunities within a matter of weeks. She's also recognized as a Marshall Goldsmith Top 100 coach and a leading voice in leadership by LeadersHum. Her influence is undeniable. Now, on today's show, she's going to share a little bit more about how to be less stressed and reverse burnout and exhaustion. She's also going to speak about how to get our good ideas heard so that we do not live in frustration of being unheard. I'm sure we can all relate to that in one way or another. She's also going to share about learning to respond and not to react so that we don't have to rehash situations all day and all night. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie.
You are so welcome. Each of those particular areas, I'm sure as women in leadership, whether it's in our business or whether it is for an organization, can relate to that. Let's just dive in because I know that there is a lot to unpack in each of these areas. There's a lot going on around in the world, let alone the normal day-to-day things that we need to manage in our businesses and in corporate. How can we start to be less stressed so that we can also reverse burnout if that's something that we're experiencing in exhaustion?
Yeah, it's definitely universal. And, the way that we've been thinking about burnout and exhaustion is that it comes from too much to do. Now, look, I'm sure every one of you listening has too much to do, and it definitely overtaxes our circuits. But what I'm seeing is that burnout isn't coming from too much to do, but rather from too little power. So really, if you want to start to reverse the way that you just feel so exhausted all the time, it's really about being more in your power, right? And the very first way that you can do that is to increase your sense of control. We only feel stressed when there's aspects of the situation that feel out of our control, like it is that out of controlness. That makes us feel stressed. So really, one thing that you could do and just make as a practice is as you go throughout your day to kind of sort out every challenging or stressful situation into what are the aspects of the situation that you can control, like this, your 50%, like the part that you bring to it, and distinguish that from the part of the situation that you can't control, kind of the other 50%, if you will. And Anne-Marie, when you think about it, it's like every moment that you focus your attention on matters that you can't control, you leak your power. Like all that life force and know-how and good intention, it's just like, shh. So be impeccable. for your 50%. And I'm not saying you have to be like a perfectionist or a control freak, because the whole like takes one to know one thing, like I got it going on, because really that's trying to control like 100% of the situation. And what I'm saying is like, take 100% responsibility for your part, and put your time and energy into being really effective there. It will get you so far toward what it is that you want, and you'll be so much more detached. And we can definitely get in more to like how you neutralize people who have negative energy around you. Like, I'm here for it.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to dive into that as well, because one of the things, and I love that you've reminded of that, and I'm sure we've all heard the sayings about, like you can control the situation as far as what you think about a particular situation, but it's not just a saying or something that we've heard. We really can, as you say, step into our power by looking at, well, what aspect of this do I have control over, and what am I, leaking? Is there energy that's leaking? Because when you talk about burnout, and if you wanted to define what you say burnout is or what you believe it is, there are different aspects that lead to that. We can try and avoid that, as we say, before we even get to that situation of, oh my goodness, I just feel really burnt out. Talk a little bit about that, and then let's dive into how can we protect ourselves, step into our power, or reclaim it when we're around people who may, do the opposite. So let's talk about burnout first.
Yeah, for sure. So, there are some formal or like technical definitions where it's an exhaustion that goes beyond like having a good night's sleep, or, and where you're to the point where you feel even cynical about whether you can make a difference and like whether you have any efficacy in the situation. You really start to kind of get down on yourself. So there are some like formal definitions, but I want to talk about it maybe a little bit more in an informal way, where we just feel like situations like it's just hard and things are just not the way that we think that they should be going, whether it's the way that I'm being treated or things, around me. And a lot of women, we're so angry. Okay. We're just like so angry, about what's going on. But like, there's no sanctioned place for us to feel that, to express that. So we internalize it, we stuff it down. So I think a lot of us just feel kind of bogged down with frustration or with anger, or even with just a sense of grief and loss about like how things are going, and our sense of, we feel powerless. Right. And, when you're in that state and you feel powerless, or what I call kind of out of your power, you'll know it because you'll find yourself kind of in that mental swirl, right? You'll find yourself kind of emotionally hijacked. You'll find yourself reacting. And, here's really a simple way to remember it, is that when you're not in your power, the way that you go through your day, you feel like a thermometer, meaning that it seems to you like your experience is like other people act and you just react. It feels like, your mental and emotional state is kind of going up and down all day long, and that's what's exhausting. And your experience is that you're more of the casualty than the creator of your experience. That's what it's like. And many of us, many women, we feel like a thermometer. And so what you want to do to get back in your power is to shift from being the thermometer to being the thermostat.
Okay.
When you're the thermostat, you set the temperature, you set the tone, you decide how to view yourself, what you believe about yourself, what your yes and what your no is. You have a vision for how this whole situation could be better between me and you, on the team, in my business, in our industry, in our community. You have a vision of how things could be better, and you know how to bring everyone else along in your vision. And then it's just like better, and you get the outcome that you want to advance your own career or whatever is going to be good. But not only that, but you make it better for everyone around you. And that's why you want to be the thermostat, because when you're not in your power, when you're the thermometer, it's like you could start to show up as a diminished version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you're burned out, you're really going to feel that. And the way that you try to make the situation better usually makes it worse. or just perpetuates it not getting any better, because you'll be like, well, I said something, or you're hoping for them to change, or, and then everyone's like more entrenched and more hopeless about the situation. But the moment that you step into your power, you shift the power dynamic. And
Yeah.
then you can see solutions that you haven't seen and make it better for everyone.
Yeah, because as women, and I'm sure men can relate to this as well, but we can have conversations and arguments and debates in our head without the other person. So we may think, well, I'm just going to ignore it. However, energetically, we are still expending, if I can, the energy around that. And we, as you say, we continue to bring that with us because we're internalizing it. And that's when things will trigger us, that, as you said, the thermometer rather than being the thermostat. And I love the way that you explained that, because I'm sure some women would be thinking, oh, that's what I feel. I didn't realize that. We may not realize that. Hang on a minute. What you're experiencing is not just something that is something that you have to go through. There are steps that you can take. So I'm glad that you explained that, because what I have found in situations too, that the emotion can start to wear you down physically. I'm so exhausted. Tasks that I used to enjoy doing, there is that passion, that no longer I don't feel. So that can impact us physically as well, can't it?
That's burnout right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so on it. You get it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about something else that I know a lot of women can be having, that internal stress and that voice inside their head and frustration. They have a good idea. They may share it. How often do we hear this? I shared this idea, then was kind of shushed in the boardroom, and then someone else mentions it, and it's the best thing since sliced bread. Or an idea is taken, you share it with someone that you confided in, and then the next minute they're launching that in their business. We can live in frustration if that happens, of not being unheard, or someone steals your idea. Speak about how we can work through that.
Yeah, so many listeners are rolling your eyes right now, aren't you? We've been there, right? And it is very common. And I would say that there's at least two contributors to that. So one has to do with the kind of effectiveness that you bring to influencing or communicating. So we can talk about that in a minute. And then the other is a context of gender and racial bias, that we know that this is true. Actually, this has been researched that women are interrupted, that their ideas are not picked up in the same way. And then, a guy down the table, from you is going to say it in the same way, and it's going to be picked up. So I can address both of those. Let me start with the first one. And, you are so insightful, Anne-Marie, because you said it just a few minutes ago when you said that you have a good idea, and then it's like you're repeating it to yourself in your own mind. You're sharing it with a friendly audience and so convinced of how right you are, right? And then what happens is that when you come to share that with your manager, or someone, potential client, or someone you're trying to influence, a policymaker, et cetera, is that you say it to them in the same way that you talk to yourself about it.
Yeah.
That's a no-no. And because really, you're asking it from your point of view and not from theirs. And really, you always want to kind of take your own head off, and you want to think about it, in terms of what's in it for them. And I see this a lot, actually, is, women with like terrific ideas, and just like you said, they'll kind of say like, well, I said something. So they like kind of mentioned it in passing, to their manager, but maybe they weren't impeccable for their 50%. Maybe you haven't said it in a way that really gives it its best opportunity to be picked up. And then you get out of your power around it. Then you blame the other person. They're deliberately not listening to you. They don't care about you. You take it personally. And then you're creating a negative spiral, like a vicious cycle, a negative spiral, when it could be the case, and we'll turn to that next, that they, weren't open to it. But like so often, I'll just tell you from my experience of coaching clients, is that they'll come in 100% of the time saying, I'm not heard. But then when they know, like, I have so many examples, but just one, like, there was a woman who was in a sales group at a Fortune 50 company. And she said, for 6 years, I've been asking the head of the, sales team for certain kind of assignments and resources. And every time I get a no, even though we're award winning, there's so much gender bias here. You can only imagine. She said, it's starting to affect me. My numbers are down. I'm going to have to leave. And I feel like a victim. That's what she said to me. And I said, look, let's try, a new approach. Let's see if it could be more effective. If not, I'll help you figure out, kind of your next steps. She's like, great, I'm game. So she said, I don't know how we're going to do this. In our first discussion, my boss is narcissistic and he only manages up and all that. And I said, where someone has a motivation, you can leverage it. So she just made those same asks, but she put it in terms of not this language, but it was more, kind of respectful and sophisticated in the way that we scripted it. But she essentially put everything in terms of how it was going to make him look good. When he granted these things, it was going to make him look good in front of his leadership. Just 3 days later, I get an email from him. I had a meeting with my manager. I got every single thing I asked for. You know what I mean? And, she went on. She won the biggest, enterprise-wide deal of her career. She put $100,000 extra commission in her pocket that year, and she was promoted. So now she's doling out the assignments, on the team, and she can do it in a way that is more intentional and equitable. But it's just an example. Even someone who seemed to have so little care about her, but she hitched onto the thing that he does care about. She aligned with what was in it for him.
Yeah. And that's such a great reminder, isn't it? The idea that we can have could be the idea that the organization, or if you're in your own business or for a client, that they need to hear. However, it's the delivery and the mechanisms that we use to share that idea that is going to make an impact and have that influence, and doing it through the lens of, as you said, what is going to really impact, in her instance, her direct manager, the leader. Then he got buy-in. So it's often the business case. How are we expressing it? Could we change, could we change our language around that? And if we think about our own business, we know that, don't we? When we're creating marketing material, if we've got a team that creates marketing material, we need to look through the lens of what is going to capture the attention of our ideal client. It's not that our idea or service offering or product is not making the grade, but it's how are we expressing it, how are we delivering that. So I love that. We don't need to live in frustration. What about then if you are working with someone, or you have shared an idea, you've confided, you've got a confident, but unfortunately they have been unscrupulous in their dealings and have taken that idea and claimed it as their own, or they've run with it, and there all of a sudden is your idea, success after success, but it was your idea. How do we handle that?
Yeah. Grr, right? For anyone who's experienced that, I'm sure you've been uncredited in that way. And, I would be in favor of speaking up and saying something. Again, I think that there are respects. So actually, in my book, In Your Power, there's a whole, the book is based on 12 power portals. So 12 ways of being in your power in any situation. And one of them is about how to turn a no into a yes. So we just had one example, from that. And then there's another chapter that is really on sharing your powerful truth. Yes. And I think this would be an opportunity, really, for how to share your powerful truth. And I know that a lot of women might feel like they can't say anything, or they shouldn't bring it up, or they don't want to be rude, or they don't want to be accusatory, and all these kinds of things. And I think if there's a factual truth, that you did the work and are not being credited with it, then I would encourage you to say something. And I think that you could say anything, as long as you do so in a way that could be received and acted upon by the other person in a way that is respectful and, helps them understand how to kind of learn and do it better. So I think there could be a few ways that you could bring it up. I mean, you could ask, just to be included. I think a great thing to do is to ask to attend the meeting where the material is going to be discussed, because then when the question gets asked, it's going to be clear that your manager or whoever took the
How did you
information
come up with that idea? I'd love to unpack that. What led you to that idea?
is not going to be able to answer. It's a perfect opportunity for you to chime in and kind of showcase, your talents. And, anytime that there is a kind of a slight or a microaggression, a really neutral way of bringing that up is by using the phrase intent versus impact. And so, you can always say to the person, I imagine your intent was to kind of, to showcase the work of the team, or something that, you want to try to make the person right, because if you accuse them, then immediately they're going to be defensive. And then, then the person has to like defend themselves, and you're not going to get kind of the outcome that you want. So you want to try to make them right wherever possible. And then say, I bet that was your intention. And the impact is that, myself and other people or whatever are the ones who are really close to the data. And this way people aren't going to know who to reach out to in order to, follow up questions. Or I might, that's one way. Or another thing that I might do is, this is a secret ninja tactic. Ready, Anne-Marie? This is really
okay. We won't tell anyone else.
just us girls here.
And people
And but one thing that's influencing.
Yes.
One thing that's super ninja in terms of influencing is when you connect somebody to an identity that they value, and then when you ask them something that is about aligning with that identity, it's hard for them to say no or not do it. So if you can like thank your manager for giving you exposure, or helping to, have discussions about your career path, or agreeing to, put you in front of senior leaders, that kind of a thing, and ask if your name can be credited, if your name can also be credited, or if you could attend that meeting. It's so when you thank the person for helping to support you, and then you ask them to do something to support you, it creates a lot of cognitive dissonance for them to not do so. So you see, even when it feels like there's nothing that you could do and you feel powerless, there's always ways for you to be in your power.
What I love about what you've just shared is it really reminds us there are lots of different ways that we can approach that and look at what can I do differently to remain in my power, so that others are also aware, perhaps, expressing it in a different way, business case, making the others look good. But what I'm really hearing, and this is such a good reminder to us all, what we don't want to have happen is we create an internal dialogue that my ideas are always taken. And so you end up sharing with no one. That's what we want to stop. And I just love how you've given us the opportunity to look at, okay, well, what can I do differently to so that this situation doesn't happen again? And I love the way that you shared the first example, because when we contribute to someone else looking good, as you said, your client, she rose, and now she's in part of that. So by not changing her approach, she may still be grumbling or gone and moved to another organization, but she still would have had that hurt and that ill, that feeling of, oh, I'm glad I left that situation. It wouldn't have been handled in such a way that she'd reclaimed her power. So I love that. Let's talk about, because what will happen if we don't deal with that, we will continue to react versus responding and rehashing things over and over again. How do we start to learn to respond rather than react?
Yeah. I think that's, it's one of the number one questions I'm asked, Anne-Marie. I think we are all feeling so reactive these days. There's just so many things. Every day can just feel like a battle, And I think what you were just talking about, that kind of, internal like mental swirl that we get into, it's very relevant to reacting. And really the message that I'm trying to get across here is that no matter what's going on around you that kind of kicks you out of your power, there's always things that you can do to get back into being good in you. And when you're good in you, when you're in your power, the way that you will approach the situation, you will be able to see the situation more objectively. You won't be looking to the other people in order to know whether you're doing a good enough job, because you just know that you're doing a good job. You just kind of trust yourself. And so you're not setting yourself up to take things personally, to make things mean something about you when objectively it doesn't mean something about you. You know, you're not kind of putting that narrative onto the situation. And that's really going to help you to kind of get above that personalized response, and to be able to think through the situation, like what's really going on here in the context. I think it's like a great like rule to kind of require yourself is to look at any situation from like a three-dimensional perspective. Like, what am I thinking and feeling? What is going on for the other person? And then what are we creating between us? You know, what's maybe more of an objective story? And this is, I just want everyone listening to appreciate that as human beings, the way that we are hardwired is that all incoming stimulation and information goes through our emotional centers. And literally, it passes through the part of our brain, the primary question of which is, what does this mean about me and mine? And how is this going to affect me? Like we are so set up to take it personally. And you have an opportunity, and then that puts us out of our power, because when we're in that emotional state, literally, and I mean this literally, the emotional centers of your brain are cut off from your rational thinking centers. Like they're calling and nobody's picking up, like literally, until you do something to reconnect your emotional and your quote unquote rational thinking centers where you can think clearly and get above the situation.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, and in my book, you know, In Your Power, there's a whole kind of portal that is dedicated to things that you can do to get out of that emotional reaction and to be intentional. Like, who do I want to show up as in this situation? And then to make that your come from, and to be able to, because remember, when you're in your power, you raise everyone around you. So you want to be the one who can kind of say, and who do I need to show up as in order to see kind of what's going on for me and for everyone, and shepherd all of us, you know what I mean, to kind of a better way of doing things. And for every one of you who want to be a leader in your family, in your company, in your community, that is where you start, because everyone else is being reactive. And this is a chance really for you to be above it, for you to stay good in you so that you can make it better for everyone around you.
Yeah. The reminder of looking at it, well, you know, questioning, and I always lead from curiosity, or saying, oh, isn't that interesting about how you are, what's going on for you, interesting from a point of view of the other person's perspective, because you know, once we start to do that, we can then, with more interest and curiosity, think, how has that person responded and reacted, or why? Because often, you said, we take that personally. They did that because they're personally attacking me, because what we've done is we've had a previous experience, and now we're measuring this same situation in exact through the same lens, that, you know, with this person, which can be absolutely, you know, untrue. I'll give you an example. And I think I heard this on a previous show. You know, you could be sitting across someone, whether it is a leader or someone from your team or a client, and they're looking at you with a certain expression, and you're thinking, they're looking at me, they're unhappy. And this person could be thinking, did I switch the light off, or did I turn off the stove? You know, that kind of thing. And all the internal dialogue that we've just invested on a completely, you know, incorrect assumption. We do respond and react a lot of times through assumptions, which are just not true, isn't it?
It's so true. And that's why you really want to check yourself and kind of require yourself, you know, to really look at the context and tell kind of alternatives, you know, to your first narrative. And there's something that I really want to encourage all of you to do, which is that remember we were talking about how we're just so bogged down, that there's so much frustration and resentment and blaming and anger, and we don't we don't have anywhere to put it, and it just accumulates in us, and that's what it takes a lot of energy to not be angry. It's like an encaged tiger, and it makes us so cranky. Like, who here just feeling cranky, like a lot. And so, there's, again, there's like that whole chapter in your power book about things that you could do to kind of move that emotion through. But there's, one favorite that I have, and it's dance breaks. And this is so fun for women. And so now I've actually started incorporating this into my keynotes. And I was giving a virtual keynote a couple of weeks ago for women around the world who are on the front lines doing global development. I can only imagine how, very frustrated and bogged down and internalizing of, oppression that they feel. And so I said, we have to move that emotion through our body in order for you to have mental clarity and open yourself to fill that back up with joy and with pleasure. And so I said, we're going to do like a rage dance break. And I put on a song that was really like move it through, and they were like, we love it. We're going to do this. And they're like getting together and they're like with their friends and like doing dance breaks. That's a fantastic thing to do with girlfriends. But if not, do it in your own living room or wherever you are working, remote, involve your kids. And I have put together playlists for anger, playlists for kind of grief or sad or disappointment. I'm going to give you the link where you can access them. And like 1 or 2 minutes really of just doing like a rage dance break, you're in a totally different mood. And the only
energy.
So fun. And it's so fun to do it together with girlfriends. Like, if you can schedule it or do a pop-up, when you need it. And here's the rule is whenever you do a dance break, whatever the emotion is, you kind of get it out, but you always have to end with a song that sort of lights you up or turns you on. So I also have a playlist for, kind of fun, turn on, light you up, or sexy, sensual kind of songs. So I have all these playlists. I'm going to give them to you, and then you can customize it for whatever, the songs that you love, add it on to with your girlfriends. And so do that dance break and then turn it on at the end. And the message is, it's sort of like whatever was going on with you over here, like I know how to get back to good in me. Like I have sovereignty and I know how to show up as who I need to be in order to make it better for everyone else. So the place that you can get these playlists is at www.inyourpowerbook.com, inyourpowerbook.com. And I can't wait to hear from you and which songs you're using and which you love. And I think we should just grow the playlists and just let's call dance breaks for your listeners. I mean, it's just so fun and connecting. And when you keep that emotion bogged down and they're winning. No. Nope.
And it's important, isn't it, to incorporate whether it's dance breaks. I know for myself, I mean, I love dancing too. I do it alone because I don't know, I just enjoy doing that just dancing and music, but I love going out into nature or a walk at the beach. It's important for us as women to incorporate that into our schedule, isn't it? In fact, for me, I know my energy levels are down. I need to do that. So I have to incorporate that into my day. And it's a way that I replenish my cup, so to speak, and my energy levels. It's important, isn't it? And we often as women put ourselves last and our needs last. It's just something that we
so last and never, like last and then, and kind of never. And, one of the things that like a dance break or anything that you can do to kind of really move that emotion through is really kind of the first step. And the second step that completes the equation is to then fill yourself back up and with joy and with pleasure. And most women are not going through the day asking themselves the question, and and what would feel good to me? And what
What
do
do
I
I
do in
need?
this situation? Like, and when you're in that emotional state, literally, like that is not the question of that emotional state. That isn't the question of a more relaxed or empowered kind of state. So I want this to be a challenge for all of your listeners, to start doing pleasure research, to be going through your days and asking, like, what would feel good for me in this situation? Whether it's what I'm going to eat or what I'm going to drink or what the feeling of my clothes, next to my skin, or putting on really something snuggly before you sit down to watch TV or go to bed. Or, I mean, it could be anything, and kind of, everything. Taking a few minutes for yourself out in nature. And it just changes everything. And, I have a program called Flirt Your Way Through the Day. And, one of the women said, as she started to do pleasure research, she said, I came home today and I told my family what we were going to have for dinner rather than ask them. And she was like, this was revolutionary. You know what I mean? Like, that I decide, you know what I mean? And like, when her husband asked, what do you want? She's like, this is what I want. You know what I mean? And she actually had an answer, not like, oh, whatever, you do what you want. And then she makes him wrong for it. Like, that doesn't serve, anyone. So go out and do pleasure research and start to build up like a whole portfolio of like what feels so good to you and what not so good. I don't want to do it, again, and share with your friends, and just don't make yourself wrong. It's all research.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And is the best way to get in contact with you through in your power book, or is there other ways that you others can connect with you?
Thank you so much. So to purchase the book and to kind of get the playlists and all the other resources about how to be in your power, inyourpowerbook.com. To connect with me directly, it's at my website name, SharonMelnick.com. And I'd love to connect on LinkedIn as well. And I'm so grateful to talk to you about this. And remember, when a woman is in her power, she raises everyone around her.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and lifting us up through the insights that you have shared. Really appreciate that. And absolutely, everyone, connect with Sharon over on LinkedIn and in her personal website or in yourpowerbook.com as well. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Hey, it's Anne-Marie. Before I go, are you a coach or a consultant who feels like the world's best kept secret? Your experience is vast, yet secretly you're frustrated because despite all of your hard work, you're just not getting the visibility, the recognition, or new clients you'd hope for, and you don't know why? I've created a free resource that'll help you build visibility, generate leads, and enroll dream clients with ease because you're seen as a trusted authority, even in a crowded marketplace. And you've positioned yourself as the choice versus just a choice for your dream client. To get started, go to annemariecross.com/gift. That's annemariecross.com/gift.